welcome to Appalachia Rising. Today we have with us our representative from the 94th District in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Angie Hatton. It's good to have you here.
Dr.
I've been
Webb.
wanting to talk to you for a long time.
Thank you so much. It's always great to talk to you.
So how are things going in the 94th District?
Well, better every day.
That's good.
Better every day.
And so just for people, because we're hoping that this podcast goes out to a national audience, describe a little bit of what your district is like.
Well, my district is Letcher County and part of Pike County in the heart of the mountains in Appalachia. Probably, you know, the prettiest place on earth. Mm-hmm. If I'm being just completely objective and not biased at all.
That's right,
it's
sure.
absolutely beautiful here. Lots of mountains and wonderful, friendly people. We've been disadvantaged economically, but, you know, hopefully that's all changing.
So let's talk just a little bit about the challenge first to kind of lay the groundwork for what we're going to talk about next. Talk a little bit about the primary industry in this place for at least 50 years and then what's happened to it maybe in the last 30.
Right, so this is definitely the coalfields area. We've been coal mining communities here in eastern Kentucky since, early 1900s, and at least 3 generations of my family on both sides have made their living as, mining coal, and that's taken a huge downturn pretty recently for lots of different reasons combined, but 4 or 5 years ago we had massive shutdowns of coal-fired power plants and coal mines, and big loss in population because people have been moving away to find work. So when I see statistics that show our unemployment rates are down, it's interesting because there haven't been new jobs really created.
Right.
It's that people have moved away.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a shame because we don't want people to have to move somewhere else to find employment, but that sort of has been what's going on in eastern Kentucky for the entire time that I've served. This is my second term as state representative, and for a few years before that.
Of course, that's just a part of the story, right? Because the changes in the local economy are one of the challenges that we face, but they also provide an opportunity for Eastern Kentuckians to be very creative with what they're doing work-wise. And I know that you've been involved in bringing some of that economic development to the area. And since this is a podcast about great ideas arising out of Central Appalachia, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been working on?
Well, you know, we did have a crisis a few years ago where everyone panicked. There was wringing of hands, there was heart palpitations. We were really scared about where our region was going, but it took some dedicated local people with innovative ideas to realize that we really have been forced to redefine ourselves. And so it's actually an opportunity for us to collaboratively figure out where we're going from here and what we want our region to look like. No one wants the region to dry up. We want to make sure that it's here for our kids and that our children, when they finish their degrees at UPike or some similar fantastic higher education opportunity, that they'll have a community to come back to. And so we've been redefining ourselves in a number of ways. There have been solar, industry, prospective businesses looking at locating here, and some of them still are. A few of them didn't go through, and that's one way to use the abandoned strip mine areas. When we level off mountaintops, and then there's flat land that's high up, that's a really good place to locate some solar businesses.
Some of our listeners might not understand what a strip mine looks like after the fact, and I think maybe before I moved to Eastern Kentucky, I had this idea that it was just, rock and stone and the mountain was gone, but since arriving here, it's very different than that. Can you describe that just a little bit and talk about why solar might work in that?
Sure. So an underground mine means they tunnel under the ground, sometimes for miles. But a strip mine is basically mountaintop removal, and so large chunks of the mountain would be leveled off, And then before the companies leave them, they're supposed to contour them and sort of put them back into not entirely flat land, but in some cases they do because they specified it for agricultural use or to develop it for building upon. And in that case, it ends up being planted with trees or grass and left flat.
Yeah.
And flat land is a commodity here. You know, we have hollers, the hollow
Yes.
places between mountains that sort of snake back between the two mountains, and that's where people tend to build. But then, you know, strip mines, for whatever, you know, there's lots of reasons to criticize having done it, but they did leave large flat lands. And if they're high up and closer to the sun and aren't overshadowed by mountains or tall buildings, it could be a very good place to harvest sunlight.
That's right. And so we've had a couple of companies who have come in, and a few of them have looked and decided that this isn't a good place. But I think we've still got at least one or two that are
That's
very
right.
serious, and maybe one getting ready to start building in
That's
Pike
right.
County.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, so that'll be really good. Excellent.
Yes.
So down in Letcher County, I know that in a podcast previous to this, we talked about some of the things that the Whitesburg Clinic is doing with creating what they call a pharmacy program, where they are prescribing healthy food to patients who have diabetes and hypertension. But I also know that you were involved in the creation or the implementation phase of that farmers market. Can you talk about that process?
Yes, we're very proud of our farmers market. The Whitesburg Letcher County Farmers Market in downtown Whitesburg, Thursday evenings and Saturday mornings, beginning this week.
Oh,
actually,
great.
So it's good timing. Started, I think, 4 years ago, maybe 5, not very long ago at all. But they have made some fantastic strides, and it's something that I can feel so good about that I will talk about forever. So seriously, you have to stop me if you want to move on to another subject.
Well,
But,
you talk about it for a while. That's all right. Go ahead.
so we had out-of-work coal miners
Uh-huh.
living on unemployment while they looked for another job. Other jobs weren't happening. They didn't exist. So it was time to move away or find something else to do, go back to school. And a large number of them realized they already had backyard gardens. They were already growing enough food for their own families, and that if they just added some extra, that they could go down on Saturday mornings and sell it. And the reason it's good, not only for putting these out-of-work coal miners back to work and providing a supplemental income for their family, all the money stays local. You know, if you buy from a local farmer, it's much healthier food than you would be getting from a can or frozen. It's not trucked here.
Right.
It's good for the environment. And it's also so much healthier because one of the main things about Eastern Kentucky, we're always low in the statistics, 48th or 49th or even 50th in least healthy communities in this country. And it's partly due to our diet and partly due to poverty, that people just don't tend to eat in healthy ways here.
Right.
And so local produce is healthier, plus the money stays local, and it's a win-win-win. What the Letcher County Farmers Market has done so well for such a little small town is that they have capitalized on relationships with business partners, such as Mountain Comprehensive Health Corporation.
Right.
And their CEO, Mike Cottle, has been very interested. He had an agricultural background anyway, and in the health of his community and investing in that. And so he started out maybe buying the T-shirts for farmers market or, you know, small investment. And then the idea for pharmacy was conceived, and it's pharmacy with an F.
Right.
And so for their patients that have diet-related disorders like diabetes or hypertension, their doctor might actually prescribe healthy vegetables to them, and it's written out on a prescription pad type voucher, and they can bring it down to the farmer's market and trade it in for free produce. And then their health progress is tracked, and they keep close track of, you know, all of the different ways that we measure whether or not their health is improving. And there have been some extreme success stories that starts with the pharmacy program.
Right. And so that has to be something that you're very proud of being involved in the beginning phases of.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a bunch of other things too. There's summer feeding programs. So our schools do free summer feeding for the kids at farmers market.
Oh, really?
Instead of having to
Okay.
go to the school. And they're feeding them local produce.
Good.
And so they can have a smoothie made with local blueberries, and they can make it themselves on a blender powered by a bicycle.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and they love that. Or, burrito made with local vegetables and locally produced pork for the sausage. And then there's a walking program that not coincidentally starts near the Housing Authority,
Right.
where we have some of the less healthy population, the lower income populations tend to have more health concerns just because frozen foods or, foods high in preservatives are cheaper. And so they, access to healthy produce might be out of reach for some people who can't afford it. And so the walking program, if they walk the 1 mile from the starting point near the Whitesburg Housing Authority to the farmer's market, the participants get a $5 voucher for fruits or vegetables at the pharmacy or at the farmer's market. And so we have kids and some older people. I think we have maybe 80-something or 90-something participants already who get paid to walk, and their pay is healthy fruits and vegetables. And the kids love it, and they want to do it. And then Pepsi sponsored a challenge, a fitness challenge. There's trivia questions and activities for, for the youth to do at the farmer's market. They've had the SNAP program and senior citizens vouchers, and you get double points for your SNAP benefits if you spend them on vegetables.
Very good.
Yeah, rather than less healthy foods that are processed and not produced locally. And then that has caused basically the worst problem we're having at farmers market now is crowd control. Honestly, we put up a rope at first to keep the people, in place until the farmers market's supposed to open at 9 a.m. And now, people were going to trip over the rope maybe, so now it's a chalk line. But really, we have so many people who want to participate that there's crowds, and that means they're coming downtown.
It is,
and they
yeah.
might frequent a restaurant or other business downtown, a retail shop, and that's been really good for the community. Very good for the farmers because they know that their supply is there. We started cooking classes we found out that a lot of the folks who we were trying to target with these fresh produce didn't know how to cook them.
Right.
So we started cooking classes, canning classes to show them how to preserve them. Opened a commercial kitchen called Cane, where they can add value to their product. And so instead of selling your bushel of apples or beans for, say, $25, once you make it into applesauce or can it into beans, you can sell that for maybe $100 a bushel.
Exactly, right.
And then you've prepared it in a commercial kitchen so you can sell it commercially. There's more, but I'll try to, but I really am awfully excited about a lot of the things they're doing.
Let's come back to the commercial kitchen in just a minute, but I want to talk about the cooking classes because I have personal experience with this. My granny grew up in Salyersville, and whenever she would cook beans or soup beans for us, the first step was to cook them to death in lard. That was the first step, and I got to tell you, they were really good.
Yes.
But they were really unhealthy. And I don't think Granny ever learned another way to cook beans. That was just how she did it.
Don't tell her some other way.
She's long gone, bless her soul. But my goodness, so I have personal experience with that. And my mom was German and grew up in the northern parts of Michigan. So she grew up steaming beans, which is a very different way to cook them. They didn't taste quite as good, just to be honest,
Right.
but they were a whole lot healthier than what Granny used to make. So I can imagine those cooking classes get really interesting.
Yes, they do. They do. And we have more younger folks coming out to them, but the older folks do too, and they're open
Oh,
to
sure.
listening.
Well, I'm
to
not
at
sure my
least
granny ever would have
maybe
been.
maybe using less lard. They were real well received. And then, they've even had like some bread making classes and things like that, and celebrity chefs come do that. So, but like if you have a good salsa recipe in your family or something else that you're great at, or preserves. A lady from Pike County, Joyce Pinson, Pike County, Prestonsburg area,
Right.
who is very involved with the farmers market in Pike County, has a company that makes preserves, and they're
Yes.
canning them at the Cane Kitchen in Letcher County, and I think she's gotten an order for, I want to say, like 36,000
She has.
jars
yeah.
of jam, because it's so delicious. I don't know if you've tried it, but it's amazing.
Her husband, Charlie, is a good friend of mine. I
Okay.
see him absolutely everywhere in town, and we talk about his wife's preserves. So,
Yes, well, she's a
yes.
dynamic person anyway.
She is.
It-
So talk about the kitchen, though, because that's a really innovative idea that I think could have legs and be replicated outside of Appalachia.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was funded in large part by Mountain Comprehensive Health Care. We've had lots of other partners, Community Farm Alliance, University of Kentucky, that have helped with a bunch of our different programs. There's several different food product manufacturers who've been either using it or talking about using it. There's a famous salad dressing from a chef called G.W. Clisso, who's talking about moving his production over there to make his salad dressing line. And just lots of other people taking advantage of it. Even maybe some beauty care products from locally grown herbs can
Okay.
be processed there. I don't know all the rules about how to separate that, but there are rules.
Yeah, so it's a kitchen space that meets all of the code requirements
Yes.
for producing food that you can sell. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and in Kentucky you can't sell from things commercially that you just produced in your home that haven't been,
Right.
if your home kitchen isn't inspected regularly and that meets the water requirements and all those things. Plus it's a space that you can rent and someone else can or use for free. And
So
someone
one
else
of
cleans
the
it.
challenges that I've heard from some of the other growers that we have here, I mean, a commercial kitchen is fine for small scale preparation and sell it if you want to sell something at a farmer's market or if you want to sell it to a local group of folks. But there's no place to process food for a larger scale sale. Are we looking into that? Is that anything that we're thinking about at this point?
Yes, it's being talked about. And thought
Okay,
about.
good.
Yeah, I don't know if there are specific
I'm
plans.
shooting in
ready
the
to
dark
share,
there,
But yeah, but absolutely, it's being talked about because, it's something that we're good at and that we're interested in the mountains. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think most people know that most of the Pop-Tarts that are sold in the United States are produced about 15 miles that way.
Kellogg's plant right in Pike County.
That's right.
Yeah.
And all the different kinds and those Nutri-Grain bars that everybody loves, they're made
Yeah.
right over there too. I just think it'd be great if Miss Penson's jams could go into some of those things.
Oh, that's a good idea
They would
too.
taste a whole lot better, wouldn't
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
they? Well, good. Well, what else are you excited about? What's going on in the legislature that you're interested in talking about?
Well, there's lots of moves toward tourism for Eastern Kentucky. We have a four-wheeler trail system that we're trying to promote. There's a big one in Virginia called the Spearhead Trail System.
Okay.
There's a big one in West Virginia called the Hatfield and McCoy System.
Yep.
And they are really becoming economic factors in those states. And so Eastern Kentucky already has miles and miles and miles of four-wheeler trails.
Right.
I'm sure we could sit down and figure out how to get from your house to my house through the hills.
I bet we could.
And I've done a lot of riding, and nearly everyone I know has.
Right.
They're old logging trails sometimes.
Exactly. Logging
Yeah.
trails and mining roads and
Yeah.
a variety of things
Yeah.
like that.
And
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and there's wildlife, and so we're accessing them for free now, and we have this liability-free condition that we've created through the legislature in Kentucky that if you allow people to hunt and fish on your land, you're not liable for their injuries. And,
Okay.
and we've extended that to four-wheeler trails. Representative Chris Fugit has been really instrumental, has taken the lead on it. He's from Perry County, but also Representative Blanton, Representative Tackett Lafferty, and Representative Harris and I, Representative Lewis out of Leslie County, all of the mountain legislators, regardless of party, have come together basically as a mountain caucus to support this. I think 17 of the local county judge executives and their fiscal courts have already adopted ordinances to cause this trail to be accepted in their counties. And we're trying to link the trails in the different counties. It just so happens that Pike County has 3 different areas that will link in perfectly with the West Virginia trail system that's already
really?
in place.
Okay.
Letcher County has several different places to link in with the Virginia systems, and of course Letcher and Pike are linked together.
Yeah.
So that you can travel for hundreds of miles eventually between West Virginia, Virginia, and Kentucky trail systems. So the legislature's we've passed legislation the past 2 years, co-sponsored by myself and lots of other local state reps and in the mountains, and just to create the infrastructure for it, and the boards are being created now from each county to have representatives. We're going to open up the trails, and landowners that want to participate can have access to the trails for whatever retail opportunities that they see fit. So the board and the coalition that we're creating will maintain the trails,
Okay.
police the trails, you're required to wear a helmet,
Right.
and they'll police that, and you have to have a sticker on your helmet that you've purchased, or in the first few years I think it's going to be free, the access, but you need that sticker. But eventually we'll sell those stickers that provide access to the trail system, and you buy, it's like a fishing license,
Right.
basically, to use these trails, and the money from that goes toward maintaining the trails, marking the trails, creating maps, and marketing it. And it will pay for itself eventually. At first, we're going to need some
Right.
funding from the state legislature. In my new role as a member of the Appropriations and Revenue Committee, which I'm proud to have been appointed to in my second term, that feels like a good accomplishment for me. I'm going to make sure that we find that funding in the
Good.
budget for that. Yeah. But we went over to West Virginia and toured those trails, a group of state legislators, and I went over. We started in Man, West Virginia, and went to several different towns in West Virginia on a whole day excursion. And what was amazing is that there were families, and I know families in Pike County and in Letcher County that were mining company families.
Right.
They own mines, and now they're holding lands that haven't been used for anything for a decade or more, and they've been reclaimed, but that's it. And they have four-wheeler trails all through them that people use anyway. And one such family at a campground that we went and toured had just taken that land and originally put primitive campsites on it and advertised that. Eventually they built a really nice bathhouse, and then they put some sewage and water hookups for less primitive campsites. Then they built cabins, and I think maybe they have 20 or so cabins. They stocked some ponds up there, and they just happened to be sitting on the area that the trail came through in West Virginia. Now they built a restaurant. They
Right.
built lots of other places you can rent. They'll give you a guided tour. They'll rent you a four-wheeler or ATV. They'll rent you a kayak for the ponds. They'll, send you a catered meal with you. And then businesses sprung up all around to repair your four-wheeler or, sell you lunch or dinner. And
Yes.
there were I kept taking pictures of businesses that had clearly sprung up because the trail system was there. They had visitors from all 50 states.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I think the one campground said that they had 50,000 people there last year.
See, that's wonderful, and
their
it's a wonderful
town
source
made
of
a little
income,
money.
right? Yeah.
Their town made a little money for things that we're already doing. We're already out riding on those trails on weekends for fun. But, once you buy a little helmet sticker, you help your state promote that to people in other states. The people were from Pittsburgh. They were from, Alabama. I saw license plates everywhere. I took a few pictures of the license plates and things just because it's amazing. They want what we have here. What
do.
we have is beautiful
Yeah.
with very little effort just to mark the trails, and keep the brush cleared off them.
Right. And of course, maps. And
Right.
I don't know if we've got any of those published yet, but the sooner those get out, I think the more likely
Yeah.
people will be to come
Yeah.
to these kinds of things. And then, as you said, the rental agencies that spring up from folks who just drive in for a day and don't own an ATV, but they want to go out and spend a little bit of time running up and down the trails that we have. What
Gas
a great
stations,
opportunity.
cabin rentals.
Yes.
Elkhorn City's kayaking is world-class rapids in October when they release the
They
water
do.
every year.
Well, and good rafting or good kayaking all the rest of the year too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
the white water that we
Yeah.
get in October, but it is the rest of the year. It's
They
really
did
nice.
Olympic trials here a few years ago. Went and watched
Yeah.
for kayaking
Yeah,
there.
it's something else, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So I know that probably 2 years ago, my wife and I took a little trip out to Idaho because we've got some family connections out there. And we went snowmobiling up in the mountains. And it's a town not unlike this
that
one.
sounds right.
It's, 2.5 hours from the nearest big city or airport. Very small, tourist-oriented place. There were 2 places in town that rented snowmobiles. We went to one of them. We got on a snowmobile and we drove 2 hours out into the mountains. There was nothing. And then all of a sudden, we rounded a corner and there's a restaurant. The only access to this restaurant is by ATV in the summertime and by snowmobile in the wintertime. And they were packed.
That's great.
Packed out.
Yeah.
And I didn't really care what they charged. They were on the expensive side, but I was hungry
That
and
was
I did not
a unique
care.
experience, though.
That's right.
And we can offer that sort of thing.
We
And
can.
gosh, we're
That's the
good
point.
cooks,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. What a,
Healthy or not.
yeah, exactly. Just get some
Some of
lard
them
up
are
there
healthy.
and we'll all be
That's
happy. That's right.
That's right. But, we also have walking trails that there's
do.
a downhill Tanglewood Trail. There's a couple in Pike County, and eventually those will hook together. We have horseback riding trails.
Mm-hmm.
We have beautiful parks already. Kingdom Come State Park and riding stables that will rent you a horse already in Pike County near the kayaking place.
That's right.
And then there's zip lining there already. And so that's in Pike County. Then over in Letcher County, there's a stable that is very near the horseback riding trail that we're trying to get through there. And we figured out that if we promote ourselves as a region more than the individual towns or counties competing against one another,
Right.
that we're doing well. We even have sort of, instead of a bourbon trail, we sort of have a moonshine trail.
I just heard of this just the other day. Talk about that a
Yeah,
little
well,
bit.
Pike County has a couple. You've got the Polly Hollow, and you've got, of course, Dueling Barrels.
Right.
And then over in Letcher, we've got Kentucky Miss Moonshine. So my district is doing well in that department. But so people will take tours, driving tours or bus tours in bourbon country down in central Kentucky, horse farm and bourbon country. But we found out they love to see mountain country and take, moonshine sipping tours. We had our first tour bus in Letcher County come. They started in Floyd County, and folks came from all over, and they stopped a few different places. So if we promote ourselves as a region, and promote tours with different interests, whether it's golf or whether it's, moonshine or whether it's ATV riding trails, people will find us from the internet if we're good at promoting ourselves through e-commerce.
Right.
Then they'll come here and stay overnight, because an overnight tourist spends an average of about $120, whereas a day tourist spends about $18.
Right.
And so we need that here. We need them to spend the night. And we need them to
Absolutely.
get gas and food here.
Good. Well, let's keep pulling in tourists because I think that helps
I do too.
to build our local economy as well.
We're proud of ourselves here. We are beautiful, and we're the friendliest people in the world. And those things naturally play well to, hospitality industry.
Yeah, they really do. So what other things are you excited about? Are there new businesses that you're ready to talk about a little bit, or industries that you're trying to court into the area?
Well, we've been working on trying to get the aeronautic industry, aerospace industry is actually very important to Kentucky, and people are surprised by that, but
I
it's
think
one
it's
of our
the
top
number
industries.
the fourth largest industry in the Commonwealth, I think.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And so we're courting some businesses like that. Obviously, the Silver Liners Company that just located in Pike County. It's a local Eastern Kentuckian who chose to keep his business here, and we appreciate him for
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Chris is a great guy too. And, promoting small businesses that already exist and renovation of existing buildings. The Main Street program in Pike County is award-winning. They won all sorts of awards. I was able to go with them up to Covington this year to accept some of the awards they had gotten for all the innovation.
Yes.
And beautifying downtown, the arts district downtown, with activities to draw people downtown in the evening in Pike County is really to be modeled everywhere. They've done a beautiful job of beautifying downtown too, and the theater.
Have you been to Dinner in White downtown?
I have missed it 2 years in a row because last year it got rescheduled. The rain date was on my wedding date.
Oh, that's terrible.
So I was in white.
You were in white, but
Yeah.
not with us.
That's right. And I hated that so much. And then this year, it is the night that I have Hamilton tickets.
Oh,
and
no.
My children are crazy about Hamilton the musical, and it's going to be in Louisville, and that's the night we got tickets for. And we named our dog Hamilton. We have a golden doodle named Hamilton. So I can't make it this year.
Well, that's
it's
really
terrible,
sad.
but everyone should go. It looks so much fun. My sister-in-law is gone, and it's going, and she loves it. Everybody does. It looks like wonderful food, and you can buy from a bunch of different
It
restaurants
is.
downtown.
Yeah, they close off all of downtown. I think last year there were 300 or 400 people down there.
Yeah.
Everyone dressed in white because it's the summertime and it's warm, and so most of us just wear really loose-fitting kind of white things. And they have a dance floor smack dab in the middle of the square in downtown, and live bands playing, and all kinds of door prizes and other things. It's just a wonderful event that draws people in from all over.
Yeah, it raises money for a good cause.
It does, yeah. It's just
and you
fantastic.
see your neighbors that you don't normally talk to when you pass each other, and you're busy in your
That's
work
right.
week.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Angie, thanks so much for being with us today.
Well, listen.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
I talk too much, but invite me back and we'll talk about some other important things for
Okay.
Kentucky, like prison reform and lots of different things that we're doing with the judiciary and opioid crisis. We'll talk about the important, serious stuff if I come back again.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And we love having you as a rep, so thank you for being with us.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you for joining us again with Appalachia Rising. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Appalachia Rising. For more information on this episode or others, visit www.upike.edu/Appalachia Rising.